Welcome to a full body foam rolling sequence. And today I will be using this foam roller, which may seem a little bit different from the ones you have seen before, but in my opinion it is by far the best. It is the best for a few reasons which will become evident while we practice. Having said that, you don't need to have this specific foam roller, a regular roller will do the job. Why am I such a big fan of this foam roller? Because as you see, it has a base. And because of the base, it can accommodate different diameters of foam roller. And the fact that we can change the diameter of the foam roller will of course affect how much pressure we're putting on our fascia, but also the lift that we get means that we can alter much more easily the angles at which we target the different muscles. So a regular foam roller of any sort will do the job, and you can follow along with your regular foam roller sequence, but I strongly encourage you, if you are to invest in a good foam roller, to be something among this one. It's the only one I have seen with this pattern, but maybe by the time this video is released or already there might be some other brands that have the same structure. So this is going to be a full body foam rolling sequence, and I will encourage you to do as I perform these exercises. I will want you to be copying me to some extent, but also listening to my cues. My body is probably going to be very different from yours. It might be stiffer in some parts, it might be more flexible in some parts, but if you follow my cues, you will be able to go to where you need to go, as opposed to just trying to match me. But of course, I'm demonstrating it for a purpose because I think it can be very useful. We're going to start with the lower body, and we will slowly work our way all the way up to the upper body. And for the first thing I would like you to do is to have your foot on the foam roller and try to roll the fascia of your foot. As it will become evident throughout this sequence is that the more pressure you put on your fascia, the more painful it feels. And I would like you also to go on your where the back of the ankle is, and there is the Achilles tendon there. Although there might be this urge for some people to move away from pain, and for some others to push themselves and feel more pain, the goal here is to always be applying enough pain so that you can feel something is going on, you are stretching your fascia, but at the same time you can breathe regularly. This is going to be different, the amount of pressure that you need to apply will be different in different parts of the body. It might be different between the same part of the body on the left and the right side. So you want to be sensitive to that. As you are rolling the fascia of your foot, as you see, you want to be going into different angles. So I'm still on the sole of my foot, but I'm trying to see if there is any part that feels more tight than the others. And this is the part that you want to spend more time on. Again, I'm going to move towards the back of and the lower part of my calf. And I will be giving you specific adjustments to make in each part of the body. So here, what I would like you to do is stay with your ankle in dorsiflexion, which is what I'm doing now. My foot is up and the toes are moving towards my upper body. And again, I want to slowly move on different angles. And the other way, the outside. And one of the ways that we can affect how much pressure we're putting on our fascia is not only by how much we are leaning on it with our body, but how much weight we are taking off the floor. So of course, if I'm going to sit with my hips on the floor, there is not going to be that much weight on my ankles compared to when I have my hips off the floor and I'm bearing a little bit of weight on my hands. And from here, what I would like you to do is stop rolling up and down on your foam roller and start dorsiflexing and plantar flexing your ankle. And you may notice that it makes a difference, and now I would like you to move a little bit higher on your calf, and again the same thing, you dorsiflex and plantar flex your ankle. The movement might be small, might be bigger than mine, might be smaller than mine. Overall, it might not be big, but nonetheless, I would expect that people with tight calves will feel the stretch here. And now I would like you to go into eversion and inversion of the ankle. You can move slowly. So I'm sending my toes out and back in. Excellent. And now we're going to move a little bit higher on the calf, and again we're going to come into dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. And if you find that at the plantar flexion the calves feel a little bit tighter, you can spend a little bit more time there. Remember that overall we want to be spending as much time as possible in the parts of the body that are a little bit more, or in the positions that the body feels a little bit more stiff. Obviously, if you spend time in parts of the body that feel more open, more flexible, it will be feeling very good, and that's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, if you want to be addressing your weaknesses or the parts that you are restricted, you want to be spending more time. Move a little bit higher, and now I would like you to be rolling up and down again. In a second we will change angle and we will go on the outside and the inside of your calf. Okay, you turn towards the side. And you want to be seeing how far you go. If you go close to joints and you feel any sharp pains, you can consider that a red flag and maybe something that you need to pay attention and refrain from stretching. But if the pain, let's say, that you feel is numb and it does not fluctuate abruptly, then that's quite safe to continue to work on. And you can go now to the outside. You notice that I'm taking my hips off the floor in this one, while I was not before, because in this one I feel I'm a little bit more flexible, so I can tolerate a little bit more pressure. But nonetheless, I still try to work throughout the entire side of my scenes. So I'm not spending just time on a few centimeters, but I'm trying to explore the full range of this part of my body. And slowly release. You may want to move out and notice the difference that you are experiencing between the left and the right calf. You may even want to touch it and massage it and notice that for the same pressure the one that you have just stretched may feel a little bit more loose. Going to the second side, you're going to again start with the foot. And you will slowly start putting pressure across the entire sole of the foot, trying to target the fascia of the foot from different angles. And the back of the ankle. For now, I suggest you keep the angle of the ankle the same. You don't have to change it. Later on we'll work through the different ankle movements. Going back to the sole of the foot. And back to the back of the ankle now, You may be able to bear a little bit more weight than you were a few seconds ago. And from the outside, still we're quite low on the calf. And now you come back to the center, and now you stop rolling, and then you plantar flex by pointing the toes away, and dorsiflex, although it's not from the toes, it's from the ankle joint. A good habit to establish in this when you are working with the fascia is that every so often it would be good, or when you have completed your practice, to stand up and walk. So at the end of this session, what you may want to do is like stand up and go for a short walk. Ideally, the walk should be barefoot and on some natural surface, such as grass or sand. But I appreciate that that would not be available to everyone. So as long as you walk barefoot, that will be great. Some shoes that are with thin socks, that will be second best. And in lack of these options, just going out for a walk with regular shoes will be equally fine. And the reason why this is important, now you can move your weight a little bit higher on your calf, and again plantar and dorsiflex your ankle. And the reason why I was saying that you want to do that is because the structure of the fascia takes time to change. Now, of course, you may feel, but I just felt quite different after doing that for a few seconds. And now I would like you to invert and evert the ankle of the foot by sending the toes out and in. So, while you may have felt a significant difference, this does not mean that the structure of the fascia was permanently changed. This is elastic in the same way that you have a band. There is this elasticity of the fascia that allows us to be athletic and allows us to be bouncy, you know, and absorbs a lot of the pressure that we feel from that comes to our body from walking, from jumping, from landing. But then this means that this elasticity does not makes it a little bit more resistant to change, and as opposed to, for example, muscles. So, and then move a little bit further up on the calf, and again you roll up and down now. So what I was saying is that by going and walking straight after you have moved your fascia, you ingrain into moving patterns that you have, and what other more natural moving pattern than walking, this new flexibility that you have just brought into your body. So if you were to just do this sequence and then go and sit on your desk, chances are that you will feel potentially less lower back pain, or you will feel more mobile for some short period of time. But I would argue that a 10 or 15 minutes walk barefoot straight after will have a much more long-lasting effect, and something that you probably will affect other functions of your body as opposed to just feeling more loose. Does it make sense? It's for the same reason why I always encourage, now move to the outside of the foot, and then we'll do the inside. It's for the same reason why I always encourage people to do their flexibility first thing in the morning. For most people, and I'm not an exception, first thing in the morning the body is as stiff as it gets. But it is if you never stretch then. If you start stretching more then, the body will stop being as stiff first thing in the morning. But apart from that, there is a more important reason why flexibility. Please remember to work all across your the side of your seam. I was saying there is an even more important reason, and now move to the inside. And this reason is that if you get more flexible first thing in the morning, every movement that you will perform between, say, 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time you wake up, and until you go back to bed, will be from a completely different flexibility level. And as a result, from the moment that you reach for a glass to the moment that you squat into your training, everything will be done with more flexibility. So you are already almost molding your body into a different body, a more flexible body. As opposed to doing the stretches last thing in the day, when it is better than not doing it at all, but already your body and your nervous system and your muscles have been used to working within a certain range, firing in a certain way, and then you're trying to change. Now, having said that, there is also a lot of benefit in sleeping and resting after we have done some training. But I guess most of you watching this video probably were not professional athletes to be able to go for a walk and then go and rest and so on. All right, next thing I would like us to do is bring the foam roller in the middle of the mat, and you may have noticed that I have two blocks. I'm not going to use them yet, but some people may want to use them in a second. And the blocks here so that they can elevate the level of the foam roller. For the next part, I would like you to go on your side, and you will be working on the side of your quadriceps. And from here, again, you can think of maintaining the lower leg straight, and depending on how much weight you're bearing on the top leg, you can make this stretch a little bit easier or more challenging. One thing that you want to consider over time is that you want to be changing the foam rollers that you're using. So, as I said already, that this I consider to be one of the best, and it has a few different attachments that you can work with. But you know, even if you don't use this specific one, I would imagine that as you keep foam rolling your body, it will become more loose. But that's the thing. There are foam rollers that are very soft and others that are very hard. So if you have been working with a soft foam roller, you want to be considering upgrading to a harder one. And you may find that the same stretches that until now were very easy for you start becoming a little bit more interesting. Now I would like you to go halfway through the side of the quads and stay there. And from there, depending, you can take as much weight as you need on your hands. I would like you to bend your knee and straighten it. And bend and straighten it. And move a little bit higher. And again, bear as much weight as you feel comfortable. And then again, you bend your knee and you straighten it. And you bend and you straighten it. Awesome. And a little bit higher. And again, you rest, you sink, and you bend, and you straighten, and bend, and straighten. Awesome. From there, you will turn on your belly. And now you will have the top of the quads resting on the foam roller. And from here, you will roll all the way up and slide back down. Try not to get on the knee. Try to work up to the point that the foam roller is not touching your knee. Okay, and now go halfway or a little bit lower than halfway of the quads and bear some weight, rest. And I would like you to bend your knee and release, straighten. Let's go again, bend your knee and release. And last one, bend your knee and release. Go a little bit higher and relax, rest. And bend your knee and release, and bend your knee and release. Last one, bend your knee, release. Awesome. And come out. We're going to go now to the second side. So again, we're going to start sideways. So you will be letting the leg, the side of the leg, rest on the foam roller, and from there you will slide down and work your way back up. If you find any parts feeling very tight, you may want to stay there a little bit longer. I just found one. And now work towards the middle of the foam roller, and from there bend the knee and release, and bend the knee and release, bend the knee and straight. And awesome. Now you go a little bit, I started quite high, so depending on where you are, you can work a little bit further away. So I will work a bit more down, and again you relax and you bend and you straighten and you bend and straighten and you bend and straighten and release. And now last part, again you find another spot and you bend and straighten and bend, straighten, last one, bend and straighten. Awesome. Now you will be having the top of your thigh on the foam roller, and you slowly work your way up and down. Remember that you can always control how much weight you are putting on your body. One way to think about the weight is the following idea of ironing the shirt or the bed sheets. So imagine that you want to iron them, and you obviously want to keep them as even as possible, the whole surface. If you put too much pressure on one part, it will create creases around it. This part will be flat, but the creases around it will be quite strong. But if you don't put enough pressure, then you're not going to be flattening the surface at all. So you want to be putting enough pressure so that the seats are quite flat. So from here you can stop in one position and bend the knee and release, and bend the knee and release, bend the knee and release. Work your way a little bit higher. Relax and bend and release, and bend and release, and bend, last one, and release. A little bit higher, last one, and from there you bend and release, and you bend, release, last one, bend and release. Awesome. For the next part, we will work on the hamstrings, and usually this is not a very hard place to in terms of stretching. So, but let's see. I will give you some options for those of you that feel very comfortable here to make it a bit harder. First, we lift our body, and we bear most of it on the where the hamstrings are, and we roll forwards and backwards. Now, if that feels quite easy for you, notice that I have only one side. It goes without saying that every time I demonstrate something on one side, you will obviously be halving or cutting in half, halving the pressure that you are putting by having both legs on. Admittedly, this foam roller might be a small one, but longer foam rollers would be give you this option. I was saying that if you find that too easy, you can cross your legs. The same thing you could have done in calves. If it was too easy for you, you could have crossed one leg on top of the other, and you roll forwards and backwards. Awesome. And let's switch, let's go to the second side. It goes without saying that throughout these stretches, you want to be noticing if you find the discrepancies between the left and the right side. In a lot of the research, it is found that it's not so much stiffness a predictor of injury, stiffness in the body or in the hamstrings. Stiffness in the hamstrings has been shown to be linked with the lower back pain and problems, but it's usually the unevenness in the stiffness between the two sides that is a better predictor of injury. So it goes back to the point that I mentioned in the beginning. You want to be spending more time where you're stiff. And this is how you will be evening out the body. And this might mean that, you know, it will be spending more time on one side than the other. Remember, you can cross your legs here if you want to intensify a little bit more the stretch. In a second, I will be saying how you can fit in fascia release with other types of flexibility that are, of course, equally valid and as beneficial. All right, the next thing we'll be doing is we will be having our hips on the foam roller. So let's start by having the left hip on, and you can keep both feet on the floor, or you can take the opposite foot off by crossing your legs like I just did. Now here, as you see that I'm leaning towards the side that I'm stretching to bear even more weight. So I'm leaning towards the left. If I was to lean more to the center, I would be bearing less weight there. Also notice that I'm going quite high up. The glutes are going to be going quite high up on the lower, towards the lower back, depending on how developed they are for you. So you want to be working along the entire range that the glutes are positioned. You can also turn slightly sideways so that you can target the outside angle of the gluteus. And switch, go to the second side. One thing that happens a lot, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier with the glutes, is that people are put off because of how painful it feels. But remember that it is a tissue in the body that takes some time to adjust, much more than, for example, muscles. So by working with the fascia, you cannot expect immediate changes or quick ones, but you can definitely expect longer term changes and significant ones, as the fascia is a connective tissue that surrounds the entire body and links body parts that potentially may not look connected unless you know the connections behind. Remember to go all the way up to the top of the glutes and also go sideways. I was telling you earlier that my fascia release is still a stretching practice and a useful one, and I would suggest that it is performed prior to any other flexibility work. So doing it is better than not doing it at all, but if you have the option, I would suggest you do that prior to the more passive stretches and finishing off with some active flexibility. Of course, the limitations between not the limitations, but the line between one and the other is not always very clear. So for example, when we were bending one knee and at the same time addressing the fascia, we're working both with some active flexibility and fascia release, and there are techniques to do that. But yeah, what I just said is more of a theoretical approach as opposed to a practical. In practice, we're always addressing muscles and fascia and the nervous system and so on. Okay, so for the next one, I would like you to lie on your back on the roller, and this is the point that I think for some people, having the foam roller on blocks will be useful, and you will see in a second why. It's also the reason why even if you don't use blocks, just you working with a foam roller like this is going to allow you to target muscles from a different angle than a regular foam roller. So from here, I'm going to rest on my lower back. And this is a great opportunity. And I can, if it feels too easy for me to have both sides of my back on the foam roller, which it is, I will turn one side, so I will have more one side of my QL rolling on the foam roller. It is a great opportunity here, I was saying, to identify which is the stiffest part of your back. Now, I would not be surprised if some of you know already, but I will also not be surprised if a lot of you don't know which is the stiffest part of your back. So as you're working now through the lower part of the back and gradually will work further and further up, you will find out that some parts are more painful than others. And obviously the part that is most painful is the stiffest part of your back. In my experience, the two areas of the back that are usually the most sore is, or the most restricted, let's say, is the thoracic part, where like ribs 3 to 6 are, and then the lower part of the thoracic area where ribs 9 to 12 are. For me, it is where 9 to 12 are. Having said that, even though these are like 30% and 30% approximately of the total population, there is definitely a very high, 15%, like whatever the percentage remains, people that have their lower back more stiff, and some people that have the upper traps most stiff. Now, slowly, I would like you to work a little bit higher. This is, as I was saying, the part of the back that I am most restricted at. And now I'm having, the lower ribs, which I'm rolling up and down. Also worth pointing out that, especially with parts of the spine, but with the entire body really, that we may need to use other tools of fascia release to address these parts. The peanut is a fantastic one, lacrosse ball is another great one, and it's not that you use one or the other. You can of course use a combination. The moment that you feel that having both sides of the body is too easy for you, you can always, as I'm demonstrating now, lean more to one side. And of course you should go to the second side. Soon we are working towards the upper part of the back, which is very much affected by the flexibility of the lats. And the lats are the wings of the back, and you can now work a little bit higher. And the lats can be very limiting in terms of how the upper body operates, both in terms of flexibility but also in terms of strength. Here we're of course discussing flexibility at the moment, but a lot of the times I will find that it's very important for flexibility issues in the traps to be addressed once the lats are strengthened. So sometimes strength work is probably one of the best things you can do for your flexibility. Of course, this is a very case-by-case scenario, but there is this pattern of people having rounded shoulders and the head leaning forward, and partly that is due to the fact that the lats are tight. And we will be addressing tightness in the lats. Notice that here that I'm bringing my head behind my back. I can have my hands supporting my head, but notice that if I was on the floor, if I was not working with the blocks, I would not be able to go to that depth because my hips and my head will be on the floor and not give me enough stretch. So again, I'm working slowly towards my upper traps, an area that is responsible for a lot of neck pain. A lot of people they have pain in the neck when in reality it's exclusively in the traps, but of course the traps go all the way up to the neck, so it's not like one or the other. Remember to make sure that you can comfortably breathe throughout. Sometimes I had to work very hard for me to be able to breathe regularly so that you can hear my voice clearly and at the same time stretch my fascia. All right, and as I promised you, now we will work on the lats, and for that purpose you will need to turn sideways. Now the lats for some people will be quite developed and they will be reaching quite far down on the side of the body, but for most people they come up to the point near the middle of the ribs. And from here, you can lean, and notice that when I'm resting on my, the foam roller on my lats, or my lats on the foam roller, I'm going quite high up. So literally now I'm on the armpit. This is a part of the lats where they can be quite developed and quite restricted, unfortunately, as well. And slowly you can move a little bit higher. And if you can move your arm while you're sinking into the foam roller, that will be great. And you can go a little bit more. While we are on this side, I will give you a shoulder stretch as well. As I've said already, the flexibility of the lats and the shoulders are very much interlinked. All right, now in order to address the shoulders, so we will bring the arm through, and for that reason I may move the blocks out of the way. And from here I will try to bring as much of my body's weight on the foam roller. You see, sometimes it is quite intense for me, so I have to bring my hips back down on the floor. I can also work to on the front of the shoulder. Again, I'm having a lot of weight of my body on my knees, so that's not that heavy for me. And finally, I would like us to stretch the pec minor. For men, it is absolutely fine to work all across your pecs, but for women I suggest you stay primarily on the upper part of the chest. Notice that I'm positioning the edge of the foam roller in the middle of my chest, so I'm not going here. So, as I said, for men you can roll all the way down, women stay more on the upper part of the chest, a place of the body that tends to be quite sore. All right, and we're going to work on the second side. So again, we are going to start with the lats. And we will allow the lats to sink on the foam roller. And from here, I will try to lift my arm. It's quite intense. And also move the arm forward. Okay, now we will work on the shoulder. There are some very interesting parts of the back that are a little bit hard to target with a foam roller, and for these ones the peanut can do the job. But overall, I think the foam roller should be the first one to use, and over time you can go into using the peanut and the lacrosse ball, which allow us to target go deeper and target more specific muscles. And now we are at the front of the shoulder. And finally, we go to pec minor. All right. One more thing. The next exercise I'm going to give you, and this is the last thing, is for the neck. And the neck area tends to be very sore for many people, but this exercise will allow you to gradually loosen up the fascia around the neck. So obviously you need to rest your neck on the foam roller, and the first thing I would like you to do is just lean back. And this already may feel intense for some people. But from here, I would like you to slowly try to bring your chin towards your chest. Now, if you just do that and you move away from the foam roller, of course, there is no more any stretch. So what you want to be doing is, as you bring your chin towards your chest, to lean back. So you notice that now I'm resting, my entire back is on the floor, and I'm leaning back against the foam roller. But now, as I'm going to tuck my chin in and I will lean back, the stretch gets more intense. And then I can go back into the original position. I'm going to do that a few more times. Chin in, leaning back. I can even lift my hips a tiny bit, and then go. Let's do that 2 more times. Go back to the original position. And release. Now, a couple of things as reminders. First, you want to be doing that regularly. How regularly depends on how much you want to progress and how much time you have available, but also on how stiff you are. I would argue that the stiffer one is, they don't need too much frequency. So anything between 2 to 3 times will be sufficient for someone that is really stiff. If someone feels that they can move quite a lot and it's mainly some parts of their body that are restricted, I would say that a more regular, like 3 to 5 times a week, will be more appropriate. Also remember that if you combine it with other forms of exercise, will amplify the effect. Also, if you're doing it first thing in the morning, will amplify the effect. If you end up doing some movements that you want to improve in terms of flexibility, such as you're running or other things straight after, or walking especially, it will also be beneficial. Drink water. I would suggest that now it's a good time to go and have some water and get hydrated. Part of the, there is a certain level, I don't know the exact percentage, but of fluids in the fascia tissue, so keeping it hydrated will be useful for this tissue. And finally, wherever you are now in terms of your pain threshold with releasing your fascia is going to change over time. I had students that within 1 month they came back and they reported that they almost look forward to releasing a little bit their body in the afternoon, when in the beginning they were dreading going on the foam roller. This is my suggestions for you in terms of foam rolling. It can go a long way. It is very much needed. It's not the only way to address the fascia. Massage, whether it is self-massage or from a therapist, can also go a long way, but it's not always as accessible. And yeah, this type of work can be a great complement for many sports or yoga and Pilates practices. My name is Anastasis Tzanis. I'm a yoga and Pilates teacher based in North London, and I hope you enjoyed this video, as this is something that I believe can have a big impact in terms of your flexibility. So put in the work and let me know, of course, how you're getting on.